I'm going to show you absolutely everything you need to know in this video on how to play Fire Mage in Mists of Pandaria Classic. So let's get into it. So the first thing we want to actually look at is what race do you want to play? Well, funnily enough, with the new Pandaren neutral race, we get some really interesting racials. One is bouncy, we take half the falling damage, which isn't technically that good, but it's still good to know. The main one I want to look at, though, is Epicurean. You love food and get double the stats from well-fed effects. So the best food we're going to be using is going to give us 300 intellect. This means we get an extra 300 intellect if we are Pandaren. Usually I would say to go to Worgen before this for the 1% crit chance. However, Pandaren's 300 intellect you get from the best food is just crazy and is really, really, really worth it. If you are going to go Horde, however, then I would recommend going Troll. This is because they get a massive haste buff from an ability called Berserking, and this is going to absolutely decimate every other Horde race for mages. Obviously, Pandaren are neutral, so you may be saying, well, actually, Javier, you know, should I go Pandaren or Troll if I am a Horde player? Yes, Trolls still outperform Pandaren with their 300 intellect. The haste buff that you get from Berserking is just way too good to pass on. Or pass up, should I say. For the talents you want to pick, it's actually not going to matter what spec you are. We have all of the same talents, and they're not too bad for Frost Arcane or Fire. So number one, we want to go Presence of Mind. When activated, your next mage spell, when casting with a smaller cast time than 10 seconds, is to be instant cast. So every 1.5 minutes, we get an immediate instant cast spell. The second line down is a defensive. I like to go with Ice Barrier. Only on a 25-second cooldown, we can absorb a massive amount of damage. The third one is more utility-based, and I go with Ring of Frost, but this is up to you. Summons the Ring of Frost at the target location. Enemies entering it will be frozen for 10 seconds. Ice Ward places an Ice Ward on a friendly target, and when enemies strike that target, all enemies within 10 yards become frozen, or Frostjaw silences and freezes the target in place for 8 seconds. I like Ring of Frost, but Ice Ward could be another really good option. It just depends on the fight and the situation at hand. On the line 61, Cauterize is going to be the one that you would go to. It's just amazing. An attack which would otherwise kill you will bring you to 50% health, and you will burn for 40% of your max health over the next 6 seconds. But that's basically giving you a large chance to for the healers to heal you back up over those next 6 seconds. So, you know, you would have otherwise died. You could otherwise go for Cold Snap. The spell finishes the cooldown on your ice block and heals you for 30% of your maximum health. But the actual get out of jail free card of Cauterize, in my opinion, is way too good to give up. On the next line, these are all for AoE. So in single target, they don't really matter. But these are really interesting. Never Tempest. Places Never Tempest on the target, dealing damage. Each time it does deal damage, an additional 50% damage is also dealt to random target within nearby. That's within 10 yards nearby. So basically, and it does tell you, this spell is strongest when applied to 3 or 4 targets. TLDR, you want to swap to this talent if you are up against 3 or 4 targets. Living Bomb adds a living bomb onto the target and does damage over X amount of seconds, and when it affects, they explode, dealing damage to everyone. This is most powerful to 1 or 2 targets. Then you have Frost Bomb, does a Frost Bomb basically, you know, boom, 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 and they're slowed afterwards as well, and the cooldown are reduced by haste. This spell is strongest when hit 5 or more targets of the explosion. So basically, use Never Tempest for 3 or 4 targets, Living Bomb for 1 or 2, and Frost Bomb for 5 or more. And that's just how you pick it, really. And then on the bottom one, it's going to be Rune of Power. Place a Rune of Power on the ground, which lasts for a minute. While standing within that rune, or within 5 yards of it, your mana regen is massively increased, and your spell damage is also increased by 15%, and you can place 2 at once. But it will replace your Evocation talent. But these are going to be the best talents here, in my opinion. Some of them aren't my opinion, they're just fact. But some of them, obviously, you know, like these ones here, is a little bit more up to you. For Mists of Pandaria Classic, I'm teaming up with Zygor to give you 20% off with code Javier. Zygor gives you the fastest and most efficient leveling experience. As you can see here, looking at killing snow leopards, I can even click all the different waypoint coordinates to see the fastest way to get to the different areas they may be in. It can also look at flight paths and show me which ways to go, including all of the different travel options. And when choosing quest rewards, it can even tell me which is the best upgrade for me. And this will be even spec dependent. I can click on the gloves, complete the quest, and then it will even tell me to equip them and shows me how much attributes and stats I will gain by equipping these items. Maybe even talents. I can use the talent advisor with Zygor, simply clicking that I want to be an Affliction Warlock, and it's going to configure it automatically to show me the best leveling build for Affliction for me. The fun doesn't stop there, though, because it's available for SOD, Classic, Retail, Leveling. I can choose zones I want to go into, and it'll tell me how to get there and do all of the leveling in that zone, even if you're going back to old zones that you've leveled out of. Dungeons, dailies, events, reputation, gold making, professions, pets and mounts, and achievements. You can use as little or as much as you like. And don't forget, you can get 20% off with code Javier and battle past everyone at lightning speed in Mr. Pandaria Classic. So now going on to the glyphs that we have. We don't have the best choices as a fire mage, but we do have choices. One of the good ones is Glyph of Inferno Blast. So if you don't know these spells yet, don't worry, I'll be showing you all of them and what they are. But Inferno Blast spell spreads Pyroblast, Ignite and Combustion to an additional target. Basically, it means that we can easily do more AoE damage to multiple targets. Another good defensive one is Glyph of Armors. Reduces the cast time of your Frozen, Mage and Molten armor. You can only choose one at a time, and increases the defensive effect of each armor by an additional 10%. You're not really going to be casting them all the time, to be honest. The one you're going to be using as a fire mage is, you won't be able to believe it, guys, but you are going to be using the fire version, Molten Armor. So this increases your spell crit strike by 5% and reduces all damage taken by 16%. That's including the glyph. You can only have one at a time. So, I mean, basically the frost one is for frost mages, the mage one is for arcane, and the molten is for molten fire mages, not molten mages. Glyph a counter spell. You can now cast your counter spell, which is your interrupt for interrupting the enemy spell casting. You can now do it while casting or channeling other spells. So if your enemy suddenly casts something, you don't have to stop your DPS rotation to interrupt them, which is really, really useful. On the minor ones, with Glyph of Mirror Image, they actually cast Fireball instead of Frostbolt, which just gives us a tiny DPS increase. And Glyph of Momentum means that your blink will actually you'll blink in the direction you're walking rather than facing. Like if I'm facing this way, I'd go that way. So I actually want to go the way I'm walking. So it just kind of helps you out there, really. But they're not amazing glyphs for fire mages, but they could be worse. For the rotation, it's fairly straightforward, but we do change a few things depending on how many targets we're up against. So number one, use Living Bomb or whichever talent you took as your number one priority, and keep this up at all times on your target. The next spell that we have here is Pyroblast. Now, you're only really going to be using this when you get a proc on it, and I'm going to explain how the procs work soon. So it hurls immense fiery boulder that does loads and loads of damage, getting 2 single target, direct damage, fire critical strikes in a row, not from Pyroblast, but from just everything, will make your next Pyroblast instant cast, cost no mana, and deal more damage. So if we get 2 crits in a row, then we will actually get a instant free cast extra damage Pyroblast. So whenever you get that proc on your Pyroblast, use it. So 2 crits in a row sounds difficult, right? Well, number one, crit is a really good stat for us anyway, and our Molten Armor does increase our crit by 5%. You'll notice here the next spell, Inferno Blast, is guaranteed to crit. So that's 1 out of 2 crits, and this replaces your normal Fire Blast. Blasts the enemy for damage, guaranteed to crit. Upon impact, it spreads any Pyroblast, Ignite and Combustion effects to nearby enemies. Then we have Fireball. This is basically your filler spell, and it's going to use this whenever you want, and obviously you hope it crits. Now, when you use your fire spells, what you'll notice is that you get this little buff on the enemy called Ignite. There you go, Ignite. Deals fire damage every 2 seconds. So where is our Ignite coming from? Well, that's our Mastery. Your target burns for an additional 18% over 4 seconds of the total direct damage caused by your fire spells. If this effect is reapplied, any remaining damage will be added to the new Ignite. Then we have Scorch. You can use this while moving. So if you are moving and you're unable to cast spells, then I would say to use Scorch so that you're at least getting, some damage out on the move. So keep Living Bomb up, use any free casts of Pyroblast. Inferno Blast we're only going to use once we've already had one crit, because this actually is guaranteed to crit. So if we get a crit on our Fireball, for example, there we go, I got a crit, and you know we did because we have this buff here, Heating Up. Scored a critical spell. A second one is going to enable, there we go, Pyroblast, and you know because it's lit up. So what we're basically, oh, I think I'm lagging out. What we're basically doing is hoping that we get a crit from our filler spells, etc. And then once we do, we get that Heating Up buff. We can then score a guaranteed critical strike with Inferno Blast so that we get our 2 crits in a row, and therefore we can get our instant and free Pyroblast. So there we go. I've got Heating Up here. You'll make your next Pyroblast instant, etc. I use Inferno Blast to guarantee the second crit, and then I use my free instant Pyroblast. Now, Pyroblast is our biggest damage dealer, and the reason I'm now mentioning that is because of this cooldown over here, Combustion. We can use it every 45 seconds. It instantly deals massive fire damage and stuns a target. If they are currently affected by your Ignite, which is your Mastery, which is on there for 4 seconds, remember, and remember that our Mastery does about 20% of the damage done over 4 seconds. So if we use Combustion, if the target is affected by our Ignite, it also burns the target for additional damage equal to 20% of the damage per tick of Ignite. When you use this ability, it also will completely reset the cooldown on Inferno Blast. So I'm aware that sounded confusing, so I'm going to give you a more simplified version of what I just said. Whenever we use fire spells, our Mastery deals damage over 4 seconds of the damage dealt from that spell. So obviously, if I'm doing 100 damage, it will do about 20 damage in Ignite. Let's say that Fireball does 100 damage and Pyroblast does 1,000 damage. Obviously, the Ignite damage from a Pyroblast would be a lot higher, because 20% of 1,000 is a lot more than 20% of 100 damage. So TLDR, your Ignite damage is going to be higher the more damage you do. And by that, because our Combustion does damage based on our current Ignite damage, you only want to use Combustion after doing massive damage. So what I would recommend is that you only use Combustion after doing a massive critical strike or after using your Pyroblast to maximize the Ignite damage that it will do. So I would do my Heating Up, and then I would use my Inferno Blast. And then you go, oh, why didn't it work? Well, because you need 2 crits in a row. So when you get Heating Up, you must immediately use Inferno Blast to guarantee that second crit. It must be in a row. So I've got Heating Up, I use Inferno Blast, I'm going to use my Pyroblast to add on to that Ignite damage, and then I'm going to go into Combustion. And you're basically just going to follow the same rotation once you're in it as usual. But that's when you want to use your Combustion cooldown. Now, when you're in your big burst phase, one thing to also note is Alter Time, which is another quite complex cooldown. It alters the fabric of time, causing you to return to your current location, health, mana, buffs, and debuffs when cast a second time or after 6 seconds. Meaning, let's get a... There we go. I've got my guaranteed crit. I'm going to then use Alter Time. And then I'm going to walk backwards, I'm going to use my Pyroblast, I'm going to use my Presence of Mind, which I'll explain, and use another Pyroblast, and boom, I've gone back to this location, and I've got my instant Pyroblast again. I can use it again, because it's put me back to where I was with all my buffs and debuffs, which would include the Pyroblast buff. So, Presence of Mind, this when you activate, will let you cast your next spell with less than 10-second cast time instantly. So you can get an instant Pyroblast using Presence of Mind as well. But it will also reset, let's say when I was standing here, if I had my, I believe it works with Combustion, if I had my Combustion off cooldown, I use Alter Time, so it's taking me back to here. I would then go into Combustion and do my Pyroblast, etc. I then get teleported back to here, or standing still, it doesn't matter. But then I have all my buffs that I had before. So it's a fantastic way of extending buffs you have. So hopefully that made sense, and the example made sense of that, because it can be a bit confusing. But that is basically the single target rotation. Keep up Living Bomb, use your Fireball until you get a crit, and then once you get a crit, You want to immediately use your Inferno Blast to guarantee a second crit, and then use Pyroblast to do your big damage. When you get a big crit or use your Pyroblast, then you want to use Combustion, and you also want to use Alter Time to maximize your buffs in that 6-second window. You can use Presence of Mind every 1.5 minutes to get another instant Pyroblast as well. It obviously won't have the other benefits of it, but it will be instant. And that's pretty much it for single target. Now, in multiple target, you could pretty much do the same thing. Because of the glyph that we have, which is a glyph of Inferno Blast, where your Inferno Blast spreads your Pyroblast Ignited Combustion to an additional target, it means that Inferno Blast is going to spread that all to a nearby target. So we can mainly just do the same rotation when dealing with 2 targets. You may also want to change your talent from Living Bomb to Never Tempest or Frozen Bomb, depending on how many targets you're up against. And you could also use Flame Strike as well if you have loads of targets huddled up, as this will do massive AoE damage, and also Arcane Explosion if you have loads of targets nearby as well. It's not a fire spell, but it's really good against multiple targets. We also have Rune of Power, which you can place down here. These are sort of more ad hoc, apart from Time Warp, cooldowns here. While standing in it, your mana regen, etc., and spell damage is increased, so you want to put down your Rune of Power and stand in at all times to increase your spell power. Mirror Image will give you a teeny tiny bit of a DPS increase, so I'll just press it on cooldown. Ice Barrier and Ice Block are obviously your defensives, and Time Warp is obviously Bloodlust and Heroism, which is one of the most powerful haste increases in the game, and you'd be using this when your raid leader or group leader would tell you. Apart from that, the other few things we have that I would recommend you using is Ring of Frost to slow down your enemies. We have Critical Mass, increasing the critical strike chance of our fire spells, and Pyromaniac as well, where your Living Bomb, etc. also apply Pyromaniac. Increases the damage done by your Fireball, Pyroblast and Inferno Blast on the target by 10 seconds. Hence why we always want to keep up Living Bomb on the target, because we're getting actually more damage by having it up. We can remove curses from our allies. We can do slow falling, which can obviously help in falling situations. We have Burning Soul, reduces the casting time lost from taking damaging attacks. Counterspell also silences your target. Never Attunement also increases mana regen, etc. And we have Wizardry, which you're not really going to notice, but it does increase our intellect by 5%. And there we go. That is the complete rotation for Fire Mages in Mists of Pandaria. For the stats we're going to want as a Fire Mage in MoP, number 1 is going to be Intellect. It increases how much spell power and therefore damage we do, and also our crit chance, which is what we want anyway. We're then going to want to get our hit chance up to 7.5% to get guaranteed hits on level 93 monsters, which is what the raid level bosses will be, and the same on expertise. But expertise will actually also work as hit chance for casters, so do be aware of that. After that, it's probably no surprise that we want crit chance, as we want obviously higher and higher chances to do crit as a Fire Mage, because we want to do crits, and it's really, really vital to our rotation. After that, you can go for haste, increasing your speed, and then it's going to be mastery, which is actually, adding how much damage our ignite overall does. Going back to hit quickly, I just want to mention that if you are a Draenei, you need a lot less hit rating to reach that 7.5% hit cap because of your heroic presence racial. Gnomes and humans also have short blade and sword specializations, meaning that they will need less if they are using those weapons, so do be cognizant of that when looking at the weapons you're using if you are one of those races. For the gems you're going to want on the meta slot, it will be the Burning Primal Diamond, and if you are having issues hitting the hit cap, then you can use the precise rubies. Otherwise, if you're not having issues with that, then you can just go for the potent versions instead. Same in the yellow slot, we're just going with whatever the hell you like in here, pretty much with Smooths, Sun Radiance, or Sunstones, etc., depending on your profession. And again, on the blue slot, you can have gems helping you with the hit cap. If not, it's these green ones shown here. For the enchants we've got a few on the shoulders here from Inscription, but if you are an inscriber yourself, you can get this super duper whooper one as seen here. Superior intellect on your cloak and lightweave embroidery if you're a tailor. Glorious stats on your chest. Intellect again on the wrists. You can actually get fur lining with intellect if you're a leather worker, and you can also add an extra socket if you are a blacksmith, and that goes for the hands as well. On the hands, you can get Mastery, Haste, Expertise, which will of course help with the spell hit cap should you need it. Living Steel Belt Buckle, everyone can add, no matter your profession. Cerulean Spell Thread, etc. on here. And there's Master Spell Thread if you are a tailor. Pandaran Step on your feet. If you're an enchanter, you can get Greater Intellect on both your rings. And then you've got Jade Spirit, Elemental Force, or Wind Song on your weapons. And you can also put Major Intellect if you are using an offhand or can use an offhand as a caster as well. Regarding the professions that you may want to take, tailoring gives you about 320 intellect. Blacksmithing does, jewel crafting does, alchemy, enchanting does. They all pretty much give the same amount, but leatherworking always comes through with an extra 10 intellect. Herbalism gives 480 haste as well, so not bad. But generally, it doesn't matter which profession you take in Mists of Pandaria. For consumables, as a caster, I'm filming this on my Mage, but it's the same for all casters. You want Potion of the Jade Serpent, increasing intellect by 4,000 for 25 seconds. You've got Flask of the Warm Sun, increasing intellect by 1,000 for an hour. And then you've also got a mana potion if you need it, called a Master Mana Potion. There's a Potion of Focus as well for casters, should they need it for their mana as well. Master Healing Potions are the healing potions, and generally you're going to be using a Great Pandaran Banquet to get 275 in intellect. If you're using food on your own, however, it's going to be a Mogu Fish Stew, which gives 300 intellect. There is a Braised Turtle, which is 275 as well, and Swirling Mist Soup, which gives 250 intellect. But generally, the Mogu Fish Stew is the absolute best, with 300 intellect for all casters. And there we go, guys. That is how you play Fire Mage in Mists of Pandaria Classic. I hope this was really helpful for you. If it was, please do subscribe and leave a thumbs up. And do check out the playlist you'll see on screen shortly, which includes all of my other tutorials for Mists of Pandaria MoP Classic. If you do want to support the channel, you can do so by joining the Patreon in the description. And if you did want to get the Zygor, don't forget that I can offer you 20% off on your subscription with the link down below. And it is truly one of the best add-ons I've ever used. It's going to make your life so much easier if you did want to get it. Whether that be achievement hunting, leveling, or anything else at all in the game, they have it covered for you.